Sound check. Hello, check.
Hello? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. We can start the session another 2 to 3 minutes, ma'am, once other participants join.
Okay.
Okay.
A warm good afternoon to one and all present here. I request the resource persons to come to the dais. And Dr. Dean, sir. Thank you, sir. I welcome our Dean Sir, Dr. Satish Ghosh, and Vice Principal, Students Affairs, Dr. Padmavati Ma'am, the organizing committee, and all the participants online and offline. We are happy that you are sticking to the schedule and coming back for each and every session. This is our fourth module of National Faculty and Development Program on Wellbeing and Salutogenesis for university students. A quick review of the last session. The topic for our last session was impact of computers, smartphones, and internet on the health of university students, where we had a discussion about various smartphone addiction problems and disorders among students and how to cope with those situations. All our sessions on FDP will be streamed on YouTube, and the link for our last session has been shared in the WhatsApp group. The topic for today's presentation is about stress in the life of university students and stress in the life of PG students. This session will be shared by two speakers, Dr. Sunaina Chowdhury ma'am and Dr. Avdiyappan sir. The first speaker of this session is Dr. Sunaina Chowdhury ma'am. She has completed MSc Psychology from Calcutta University, MPhil in Ma'am has completed MSc Psychology from Calcutta University, MPhil in Medical and Social Psychology from CIP Ranchi, PhD in Clinical Psychology from CIP Ranchi. She has worked as a research officer in project funded by Central Council for Research in Homeopathy under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and worked as an assistant professor, clinical psychology at Central Institute of Psychiatry. She has worked as an assistant professor, clinical psychology at MGMCRI in Pondicherry for the past 6 years. Currently working as a consultant clinical psychologist in Kalyani, West Bengal, and psychology guest faculty at Indian Institute of Science Education and Research, Kolkata. She has conducted well-being and salutogenesis programs and training and workshops on communication skills for SBV students in Pondicherry. Ma'am has attended several CMEs and workshops at state and national levels as a speaker and presented papers in various national and international conferences. Today, ma'am will be talking about the stress in the life of PG students, in the life of university students. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Should I share my
Yeah, ma'am, you can start sharing your screen.
screen? Can you see the slides?
Yes, ma'am.
It is moving, right?
Yes, ma'am. You can have this. You can start the session.
Can you please tell me, Dr. Vimal, how much time will I be given?
30 to 40 minutes.
40 minutes?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I will be speaking on stress in the life of a university student as a part of the FDP ongoing FDP program. The module that I will be conducting will cover the following. So there's a brief introduction, and we'll see what is health, and then we'll see what is mind and mental health. A little bit on the concept of salutogenesis. Then we'll have a look at the college years, the kind of fun and challenges students face. We will get into a briefly into developmental psychology or the developmental tasks at this age or at this period of life. Then we will come to the concept of emerging adulthood. We'll next go into what is stress and managing stress, certain common problems in this age group, mental health problems, what could be the warning signs, the barriers to seeking help or reaching out, promoting positive mental health, and finally, I'll end with a brief framework of students' welfare services. Now, college students, as we all know, are a very important segment of the population, and they have much to contribute to the growth and success of any country, anywhere. And any kind of academic performance is enhanced by physical and emotional health, which is imperative. And in this context, mental health plays a very pivotal role in the overall health and performance of students. Now, if we see what is health, then according to World Health Organization, it is not merely absence of disease, but it is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So there is an integration of biology, society, and the psychological being of the individual, the biopsychosocial model. Now, if we try to understand what we often refer to this word called mind, mental. What do we understand by mind? Mind refers to a range of mental functions which are carried out by our brain. The key components are our thinking, our thought processes, our mood or emotions, and our purposive behavior, goal-directed behavior. Other functions of mind include motivation, resilience, attitudes, intelligence, and personality. Now, what is mental health? Very simply, if we try to understand, word mental pertains to mind, and mental health means the health of the mind. Once again, World Health Organization has referred to mental health as a state of well-being where individual is able to realize his or her own abilities, that is potentials, can cope with the normal stresses of life, of everyday life, works productively, and makes contribution to his or her community or society at large. What is the importance? From the perspective of students, mental health is the bedrock or foundation of any kind of academic performance. I think salutogenesis would have been covered earlier by earlier speakers. I'll just skip over it fast. So it is basically what are the health promoting and maintaining factors, and it is interested in evaluating the coping mechanisms which individuals use routinely in the face of challenges and stressful situations. A concept given by Aaron Antonovsky, who was a very famous contributor in this area, was sense of coherence, which is nothing but an individual's general orientation towards life. And it was said that the higher the sense of coherence, the more health promoting factors would be at work, and there would be better resistance resources in the individual. On the other hand, the lower or poorer the sense of coherence, it would move more towards the disease dimension, and there would be resistance deficits in the individual. And there are three components: the sense of meaningfulness, that there is some meaning and purpose in life, which is the emotional, which drives our emotion and motivation. The concept of making sense of the world, understanding or comprehending one's world, which is the cognition or the thought aspect, and the behavior aspect is being able to cope or being able to manage with the difficulties one faces. So these three components are very much interactional amongst themselves, and there are two-way interactions between these components, and they make up the sense of coherence. Individuals or our students do have a lot of fun in college. Whatever new discipline they have taken up, that could be quite interesting and fascinating to them. They could be involved in research projects and activities. There could be a lot of exchange of views and ideas, making friends with people from different paths, participating in cultural programs and various college events, interacting with certain, and probably at a later stage, being able to interact with certain, stalwarts in their profession or in their field. But there are certain challenges that also we should, understand. Now, some of these challenges are academic demands, examinations, meeting or handling expectations, being required to balance academic and extracurricular activities. And there could be a significant need on language in two contexts. One is for their socializing, and in the other context, if we consider students who have come from vernacular backgrounds, coming into college, university, many of their subjects or disciplines would be taught in the English language, and that could create, that could be a barrier for them, a hurdle. And of course, if they move to other regions of the country, or if they are required to speak foreign languages, then that is something that they have to, acquire. Also, social and communication skills, being able to maintain good interpersonal relations would be very important in their thriving. Now, this developmental period is characterized by a certain level of anxiety related to all these issues, social, academic, and professional stressors. There are also increased time pressure, a lot of competition they face, and a subjective fear of failure. Also, for people who are have to move away from home and they're living away from home, they have to get used to the campus life or the new diet or their roommates, and they could be missing their family quite a bit. There could be, as a result of this, a certain amount of social or geographical isolation. So other stressors could be changes in relationships, changes in social life and social media, exposure to new people and ideas and temptations, struggling to establish identity, sexuality. Sometimes some of them can feel a little inferior to others. They can have sense of inferiority or sense of worthlessness. Also, teaching learning methods are quite distinct in college compared to school. So appropriate study skills need to be developed to enhance performance. And surviving exams would require the right kind of attitude and approach. A very important, characteristic of adult learning is what we call andragogy. And this is characterized by, these key elements: motivation, a readiness to learn, experience, using their experience in their learning, self-direction. The individual is self-driven and self-directed towards learning, orientation. So adult learning is definitely different from the prior adolescent or childhood learning that is practiced in school. So there is a shift in the kind of learning approach that they have to adapt, and that can also create a certain amount of hurdle for them. And making this transition could take some time and create certain adjustment issues for young people. The next section, I will be talking about certain developmental tasks that children in this, students in this phase of life have to accomplish. It is believed that every stage of life has, certain tasks and goals attached to it, which need to be achieved to be able to, to experience a certain amount of competence, and to be able to transition into or move smoothly into the next phase of life. So in that context, developmental tasks are extremely important. And in achieving these developmental tasks, there could be certain crisis, a certain, psychological challenges, or what is also in psychological terminology, which is called psychosocial crisis, which students can come across. So some of these are, so first thing is, the autonomy. Hello? Hello?
நம்ம சொல்லும் போதே கேட்டோம். நான் சேலம் தானே சொன்னேன்.
So the developmental tasks, the first one is autonomy from parents. So now they will be on their own for for several matters, and for several situations, like if they have to leave home, or they have to spend the college experience that they come across, and how they handle it or deal with it without their parents. Self-sufficiency in the context of they proceed in the context of monetary affairs, or in the context of being able to take certain decisions. So these would establish a certain amount of autonomy. Although this is not a very discrete process, it is a ongoing process and takes time. The next one is gender identity. The individual's identity as a male or a female, that is, almost comes to a, completion at this point. And they are either they are comfortable with their gender identity and the gender role that they are playing, which could be linked to the biological sex, or there could be some gender related issues if they do not identify with their biological sex. But at this point of time, it is very essential for them to come to an understanding on gender identity. Morality at this point of time, the moral development or moral understanding, moral decision-making in various situations in life is more internalized. Earlier, morality was more driven by external factors. I mean, as a child would look at it more in the terms of whether he or she is receiving punishment or reward, and therefore they would refrain from certain kind of activities or carry out certain kind of activities. But when we talk about this particular phase of life, where it is a period which includes a certain part of the later adolescence and a period which includes certain part of the young adulthood. It is a combination of these two. So at this phase of life, morality is more internalized. It is more in terms with the internal values and ideals or conscience of the individual that the individual has developed over time. Career choices are a very important area, developmental tasks which have to be where they need to find out, experiment, and decide on certain career paths that they want to take up. Later, towards the later phase of this period, social roles are diversified. So they could, once they enter into various kinds of relationships, so it could be a particular, social role in the context of the romantic relationship or their marital relation, or if they are parenting children, then a role as a parent, a role as a student or a professional. So there are multiple roles, and then of course other social roles like friends and family. So it is, being able to integrate all these roles and being able to smoothly move from one to the other. So that is, understanding, establishing, and being able to function along these various social roles. Also deciding which role would take priority at which point of time. Somebody could be more focused on the careeristic role. Somebody could be more focused on the familial role. Somebody could try to balance out both. So these are certain important tasks that have to be taken up. like I was mentioning, that there's certain psychological, tension or stress that comes along this time, a crisis, which is the individual establishing his or her identity. Either the individual is able to establish his or her identity, or there is a certain amount of identity confusion that results. Identity, when we talk about identity, it is the individual's notions about who he is, how the world sees him or her, what are his values and ideals, what he stands for. And there are different aspects of identity. Again, there is a private self and there is a public self. Private self is my own uniqueness, my own unique self, my self-reflections, or my ideas and ideals and values. Whereas the public self, again, relates to, like I was talking about, the roles, the various social roles that we are related to perform. So how well I can integrate my private self with my public self will determine a successful establishment of identity. Now, sometimes there could be, if I'm able to establish identity, I would move smoothly to the next phase of life. Sometimes there could be a problem with identity, establishing identity, and there could be some confusion as to who I am, what I want, and sometimes that could be it is not completely negative. In certain cases, an identity confusion could subsequently resolve into, establishing an identity. It could be the process itself. At the other extreme, a confused identity could, end up in more maladaptive behaviors. A lot of times the individual could be having low self-esteem. Individual may not be able to manage in stressful situations very well, or may not be able to commit oneself to anything, whether it is relationships, whether it is work. So there could be problems like this, and at a very extreme end of this, what we see is certain antisocial behaviors could emanate from this. Now, when when the individual is trying to establish identity, one very important function, one very important behavior is seen, which is role experimentation. Now, the individual sees himself or herself as fulfilling various social and roles in different capacities, professional, familial. So they try to experiment with these roles a lot of times to see what suits them best and how they would like their future to be. In the process, there could be shifts, frequent shifts in the choices they make. They could be changing their courses frequently, the course that they take up. There could be multiple job changes, or so there could be an indecisiveness, which again could be part of the process of identity establishment, which is not always. Some people the process might go on for a longer time. Now, once identity establishment is achieved, it results in fidelity, a concept which is similar to a kind of commitment, one being able to commit to values and ideas in life, or whatever it is that one engages in. The other extreme is, again, repudiation, which is a complete rejection of societal or cultural values and norms and ideologies. So for example, if we see, like in antisocial behaviors or terrorism, where they would take the extreme stand, or the completely opposing ideas and values they would adapt compared to what their society or culture proposes. So these are two important factors in the development stage of the student life in college. Now, usually there are two ways of looking at the college life. An age of 18 to 24 is considered as the college going and the university going student, which, like I said, converges between the late adolescence period and the early adulthood period. Another way of looking at some other thinkers, they propose the emerging adult concept, which is again a distinct period overlapping, once again overlapping the adolescence and the young adulthood. But here the number of years are a little more extended. It is 18 to 29 years. And some certain identity exploration, and which I've already spoken about. Some of the other emerging characteristics or behavioral manifestations or psychological manifestations of what we talked about as psychosocial crisis and developmental tasks is being able to identify an identity explorations in the areas of work and love or relationships. Identity exploration is more intense at this point of time, unlike the adolescence phase, where it was more transient and tentative. There is also a feeling of not knowing where they belong, a subjective ambiguity. So some of them are not so sure whether they should see themselves as adolescents or they should see themselves as adults. In some areas, they want to be treated as adults. In some areas, they want to be treated as adolescents. So there is a confusion or a cognitive dissonance, a cognitive dissonance in them. Also, students are usually in this age group, they're very optimistic and they feel that they will do well in life. Most of them do. Most of them feel that. There is also a lot of, self-focus into, what they want. And because of these changes, psychological changes and the crisis that they go through, they could seem very self-absorbed or self-oriented individuals at this point of time. They spend a lot of time, with themselves, thinking about various experiences. Also, they are sometimes unstable. That is also a characteristic of this phase. And there is a general instability in their life also, because there are a lot of shifts and movements, whether there are changes in friend circles or in their, heterosexual partners or, on their romantic partners rather, in changes in career, changes in residence. So there is a lack of instability in their external world as well, which can sometimes reflect in certain emotional instability as well. But towards the later years of this phase, they settle down. The earlier phase are more unsettling and more unstable, but later phases are more stable. They use certain kinds of, when faced with difficulties, they will use certain types of coping strategies, like, denying the problem or trying to distract themselves or procrastinating or talking to a friend. These are some of the strategies they commonly use when they're faced with challenges. We'll see next in the next section a little about stress. So what is stress? We are all familiar with this term. It is a psychological and physiological imbalance when there is a discrepancy between the demands of a situation and the resources that an individual has. So it is something like this, an imbalance. The demands, the resources are not able to meet up with the demands. However, we should, the definition, if we go by a definition, it can be defined as any type of change which brings about physical, emotional, psychological strain. There are different types of stress. Stress could be acute, where the onset is sudden, or it could be a prolonged, ongoing stress, continuing over several months or years. Now, stress, again, can be positive stress or negative stress. So positive stress is when suppose there is a promotion or there is a new job, or I get admission into a new college, or I go on a vacation. These are all positive stresses which usually energizes, motivates the individual. Performance is usually enhanced in such cases. Whereas distress, we all know, is a negative stress. And perceived stress, again, this is something very subjective. How a particular individual visualizes a situation, or how they understand or interpret a particular situation, stress can emanate from that. For example, if there's an exam situation, so for a particular student, it could be something which the student could be, looking forward to take the exam and see how he or she performs, and reproduce what the best that they have prepared. Whereas for another student, it could be something which is very frightening, and given a chance, they would just escape or run away from the exam situation. So perceived stress, how I see or how I understand or interpret a particular situation, can result in, can determine how stressed I feel, or whether I feel stressed at all. Now, what needs to be kept in mind is, what needs to be kept in.
Could you please repeat that positive stress?
Hello?
Positive stress, could you please repeat that, ma'am? You discussed about positive stress and negative stress.
Yes.
Could you
Yes, positive stress is any kind of stress which energizes and motivates. It is a change, but it is a change in the positive direction. For example, somebody getting married, or a promotion, or a new job, or moving to a new residence. So these could be all, joining a new course. These could be all positive stress, which is called eustress. Okay, what we need to remember is, all stress is not negative, and some stress is necessary. If I am not at all, I do not have a certain level of arousal or anxiety, I might not be able to perform or given my everything. So some level of stress or anxiety is required for us, for our functioning. But but excessive amounts of stress is something which can be unhealthy, and poor stress management can lead to health-related problems. This is like what I was saying, cognitive appraisal and stress. So there is a stimulus, and there's a primary appraisal which happens, where the individual tries to understand the situation and sees whether it is threatening or not. Now, if the situation is perceived as non-threatening, then it is harmless and there is no stress. On the other hand, if they perceive the situation as threatening, that could be potentially threatening, then it is taken on to the next level of appraisal, where the individual tries to, understand or decode the situation at a deeper level, and tries to understand what kind of coping resources or mechanisms they have in store to deal with it. So if next level, if these coping mechanisms or their resources are adequate, it meets up to the demands, or they are able to effectively handle the stress, then that results in no stress. On the other hand, if the coping mechanisms fail, or they are not able to gear up these coping mechanisms, then that could lead to, again, significant stress. So this is the cognitive appraisal of stress. The other thing that we need to also mention, that I need to mention, is stress has a physiological impact. The experience of stress or mental stress has a physiological impact in the form of activating our autonomic nervous system, the ANS. There are two parts of it, as we all know. The sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, which largely regulates or controls our internal body organs. So one is that stress would activate the autonomic nervous system. The other is stress would also activate our neuroendocrine system. Endocrine glands would secrete hormones known as stress hormones or emergency hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, in response to stressful situations. And also it plays a role on our immune mechanisms. in terms of, suppressing our immune mechanisms when, to fight infections, our immune mechanism takes help of white blood cells, which fights infections or fights antigens or neutralizes them. So these agents, these white blood cells or lymphocytes, they could be, significantly or seriously impaired or suppressed in the face of stress, so that they are not able to fight antigens, and therefore there could be several infections that an individual could be prone to. So the immune system, the neurological system, neuroendocrine system, as well as the the autonomic nervous system, these are all bodily systems which are influenced by, or which are which are controlled by or regulated by stress. We see here the physical symptoms. In that context, there are several physical symptoms of stress. Many of us would be, aware of this, headaches and pains, and there could be disruptions in sleep patterns, eating patterns, sexual problems could be there, palpitations and perspirations with acute onset stress, sweaty palms, trembling hands. This can be seen as well. Behavioral symptoms of stress, irritability, inability to focus, or lack of attention and concentration, worrying all the time, anger outbursts. There could be excessive use of substances, excessive use of internet and mobile phones, negative thoughts, and at a very serious end, could lead to depression and anxiety. Now, stress, if not handled properly, could result in excessive amounts of stress, and excessive amounts of stress could lead to mental health problems, thereby, which again, if left unattended, could lead on to mental health disorders. So managing stress, how do we manage stress? There are certain psychological strategies, there are certain lifestyle techniques, and there are certain complementary methods. So psychological strategies include self-observation, relaxation, cognitive restructuring, problem solving, time management. So being aware of the stressor, self-observation, like being aware of a stressor and how we are responding to it, understanding what this event or this stressful situation means for us, and being able to establish a relation between how I am responding and what kind of emotion it is generating in me. Relaxation therapy, there are different types of relaxation methods, muscle relaxation, breathing exercises, relaxation using hypnotic induction or hypnosis. In cognitive restructuring, changing our thoughts basically from maladaptive thoughts, beliefs, expectations, which are negative or maladaptive, changing them into more rational and positive and adaptive thoughts. Problem solving, like identifying the problem and then generating list of alternatives, evaluating each of them, and then finding out what is most suitable for us. Time management is again very important in today's time, because we constantly have to juggle through several roles and several work activities. So we need to note our pattern of time use. We need to prioritize activities that we want to attend to and fix times for them. Preparing timetable schedules helps. Of course, nowadays there are a lot of online apps which are used. I've named a few here. I believe our psychiatry department uses a lot of these, so they would be able to help you more with that. Lifestyle techniques is how I what kind of lifestyle patterns I follow. Meals, regular meals which are balanced and healthy, nutritious, regular sleep-wake cycles, fixed hours of sleep and wake, physical exercise. Apart from that, extracurricular and leisure activities may play a very important role in, managing stress. And they are, hobbies and talents that individual has are excellent stress busters. So there should be, protected time for such activities in our day-to-day life as much as possible. Also, restricted use of mobile phones and internet. So these are, some of the lifestyle techniques that one needs to keep in mind. There are several complementary methods like meditation and yoga and music and spiritual or religious practices. Of course, spiritual and religious practices would, the effectiveness would depend on, the individual's personal and cultural belief systems. So unfortunately, what we see is that these college years are also, while there are a lot of positives in terms of the optimism they share and the health, their health and all that. It is also a period where common mental disorders are quite common in this age group, pertaining to depression, anxiety, substance use. What are the common problems? The most common problems that this age group faces: stress, depression, anxiety, relationship problems, substance abuse, adjustment problems, sleep problems, internet addiction. So this was reported by college students as how much stressed they feel. 20% feel stressed most of the time. 34% feel depressed, within a period of 1.5 months. 10% students have considered suicide as a way to get out of the problem situation, and 13% are diagnosed with any one of these mental health conditions. So what would be the warning signs that we teachers should look out for when a student is, showing a persistent mood change, negative mood in terms of these? Difficulties in concentration and attention, academic decline, continued absence from class, isolating themselves from others. At one point of time, they were very social, had groups, but nowadays they are isolated. They are all by themselves. Most of the time they're sitting alone or walking alone. Changes in appearance and self-care, hygiene. References, if they make references to self-harm. On the other hand, if there are increased energy and rapid speech, and there is excessive use of substances. Now, for an individual who's experiencing stress or any kind of mental health problems, there are several barriers that come their way in reaching out, why they are not able to reach out, why they are not able to seek help. Certain factors are the individual's own concerns about if they are going to talk about or share their difficulties, whether adequate confidentiality would be there. Also, the certain myth about mental health issues is that anybody having a mental health issue is considered to be a weak person, or is sometimes seen as someone who's manipulating or pretending. Also, they are worried about the kind of impact it may have if people come to know that there are certain mental health issues they're having, what kind of impact it may have on their career development, on how the classmates would perceive them, how, whether it would be reflected in their assessments, academic assessment. So these are all concerns that they have. Then, difficulty to access. Also, there could be time pressures, because like we discussed, they are working under time pressure all the time. So there could be difficulties that we are not able to make time to go and meet a professional or reach out. A very important factor which comes as a barrier is stigma. Stigma is when we perceive a certain person or a group of people as unacceptable. We think they're unacceptably different from us. And that leads to discrimination, prejudice against them, and discrimination against them. And this is something which plays a very big role in our mental health services that we provide. So there could be a personal stigma, there could be social stigma, and that would a lot of times keep a person from reaching out kindly. So promoting mental health, like I've already mentioned, discussed, a healthy lifestyle, time management, acquiring appropriate study methods and skills, setting goals which are realistic and reasonable. Sometimes if the tasks appear too huge or too complex, they can be broken down into manageable parts, changing our perceptions and expectations, relaxing. And the last part is, some certain activities that we could do to promote positive health is connecting socially with people, whether it is friends or neighbors or family or relatives, on a if not a regular basis. We should make sure that we socialize and we connect with people around us, or people who are important in our lives. Learning something new. It could be a language class, it could be a music class, it could be anything. It could be an old interest which I have not gone in and explored, and I rediscover that. So that will be, something which would be very re-energizing. Helping people, being, doing something for, it could be a social activity, or a social work. It could be doing something for animals. It could be doing something for people. It could be helping our friends or neighbors or anybody. Some form of help which is extended to other people. Being physically active, we've already looked at, and the last but not the least is taking notice, or as to, reflecting on ourselves, and taking notice as to what is happening in our mind, or how we are looking at life, how we are looking at experiences, what kind of impact various experiences are having on us, to just monitor and understand and notice or pay close attention to our internal mental processes, to understand, how we feel and whether anything is troubling us, to be more self-aware. So in most of the, in several of the colleges or universities, there is, there are student welfare services which are run. So usually there is a student welfare committee, which is headed by an in charge, and there are faculty members within that and student representatives. And then usually there are two wings of that. One is the student counseling services. The other is the student activity, extracurricular activities section. In some universities and colleges, there is also a third element, which is the student career guidance or career counseling cell. So student counseling services, again, can be, taken up or looked, covered by two agencies. One is the mentor-mentee program. The other is the student counselor. And again, each of them could, refer cases to each other if they feel that, in a certain situation, if the mentor feels that, the student counselor would come in handy in this situation for a particular student, they can very well refer a particular student to the student counselor. However, if both of them feel that certain times, if the problem is not resolved and there are serious mental health issues with the student, which requires professional help by experts, they could then, probably liaison with the parents, or if they are, since we are talking about a college and university, some universities may have medical colleges under their wings, some may not. So depending on, what kind of a structure there exists, so they could, either contact the parents and then refer them to their own medical college if required, or if there are any other hospitals that they are tagged to, referrals could be managed like that. On the other side, there are extracurricular, like we were talking, that these are huge stress busters, and these are very important in holding an individual, or even in the all-round development of students. So these extracurricular activities can be taken up in the form of various student clubs. I believe Mahatma Gandhi also has some of these student councils and student clubs. Sometimes they could even arrange programs with alumni, where the alumni come and interact with them, and to inspire them and motivate them, or share their own experiences. So such services are also available in some universities and colleges. So yeah, and also associated agencies are peer support group, alumni association I already mentioned, and anti-ragging committee. These all should need to work hand in hand. So finally, well-being will depend on all these. These pillars are important, like lifestyle and academic skills and recreation, hobbies and support systems. But at the foundation level, or the very important foundation stone, would be how they are dealing and managing with stress. Thank you all. My acknowledgements to Dr. Shiva Prakash and Dr. Abu Bakr, because we have together worked as a team on the salutogenesis services for an extended period of time. Some of my, several of their inputs have been used here, so along with mine. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation, ma'am. The second speaker for the session will be Dr. Avadiyappan sir. Avadiyappan sir has finished his MBBS in Perendurai Medical College and done his MD Psychiatry from Tanjavur Medical College, and has been practicing as a psychiatrist since 2012. Sir has been working in Mahatma Gandhi Medical College since 2013, joined as an assistant professor, and has been promoted as an associate professor since 2019. Sir was in charge of the transgender clinic from 2014 to 2022. Sir has a private clinic in Kadalur, Manam Thirandu Mananala Marutvamayam. Sir has been actively involved in the community and outreach mental health activities as a guest speaker, panelist, resource person, especially in the government national medical health programs. Sir is interested in public speaking and awareness creation about mental health. Sir has written many novels and stories regarding mental health and wellness. We welcome you, sir.
Can we start? Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for that kind introduction. My topic is stress in the life of postgraduate students. My work here is cut out after ma'am's detailed and very elaborate presentation on stress and its management. So I'll be focusing very much on practical problems we face and how we resolve them in our day-to-day practice. So before we start, I'll just have a quick recap of the salient point about stress. The first thing you have to understand is stress occurs when the pressure exceeds your perceived ability to cope. That is very important word here is perceived. The perceived means the stress becomes individualized. A same event can be stressful for someone, will not be stressful for another one. An assignment given in the Friday weekend will be a stressful if you are planning to have a relaxing weekend, or it will not be stressful if you are already coming for a duty. So that is again something which is individualized to every person. And taking the corollary, by reorienting perception, stress can be modified. So the basic skill in managing the stress involves in looking into the problem in a different way. So all it takes is looking to change the perspective about the problems. Though it is easier said than done, but that is the way forward. So by changing the coping mechanisms, we can also combat the maladaptive stressful habits. So again, why we focus on postgraduates? One of the peculiar thing with postgraduates is autonomy. I am not using the term in the sense that madam has used. Autonomy here, what I mean is here the individuals are capable of taking their own decisions. Unlike an undergraduate or a postgraduates, unlike undergraduates, postgraduates are matured, and most of them, they don't disclose their problems to their parents. They've almost moved away from their parents. So they think resorting to that would be an so childish thing to do. So most often they are self-reliant. So this autonomy is a positive as well as a negative, as a positive as well as a negative aspect. The positive aspect being they can take their own decisions, so they can get consultation very quickly and they can resolve their issues very quickly. But negative aspect being this autonomy means they have to take decisions by themselves. Suppose if they delay the help seeking or delay the solutions, the problem might increase. Second thing is maturity. So the postgraduates are in a particular level of particular stage of life that they have some understanding about how the world functions, what are their expectations, what are their the problems and pitfalls, and how these things can happen. But maturity itself is not it's not an universal phenomena. Some of them might have an poor maturity, some of them might have a very good maturity. So this maturity, in the sense, both emotional as well as knowledge wise, they differ. If there is not enough emotional maturity, again that will be a problem. And responsibilities. Postgraduates are expected to be responsible for their work. Unlike undergraduates, we have a lot of responsibilities for a postgraduate. They are considered to be the link between the teacher and the person. Since I am in a health university, I am focusing more like a postgraduate and resident in a health university. But whatever said and done, a postgraduate is the link anywhere in the any type of education. He is the link between undergraduates and the teacher, or between the patients and the teacher. So wherever he may be, he is the major. He has some responsibilities which the faculty has entrusted upon him and him or her. So that requires a lot of raising up to the occasions, which may not be possible for some of the people. And finally, there are expectations. There are personal expectations and family expectations. Since they are now postgraduates, they have the family expects them to start supporting for their, since they have come and the post-graduation comes and somewhere in the mid of 20s, most of our Indian middle class, they start to expect them to contribute to the family finances, and they contribute to and support the family, as well as they are expected to start family. They are expected to get married. They are expected to get settled down. And if it is a female postgraduate, they are expected to have a child. So these are pressures, indirect pressures, which are mounted on them again and again. So they sometimes that become a very important source of stress, and that becomes a major reason for the stress. So that's a specific reason why we focus on postgraduates. So the sources of stress, as Madam elaborated, it can be from academic sources, regulatory requirements, or maybe financial or personal. The academic sources, the major source of stress will be curricular demands. The individual has to meet the demands made by the curriculum, and that needs to be acknowledged by the student. So he should be a proper fit to the selected stream. If he is not having a proper fit to the stream, then he tends to have more burnout, and he tends to have more of a stress. We had one student some few months back who was actually having the primary complaint was sleep disturbance. She met me, and the primary complaint was sleep disturbance, and the things, a headache and other things. Then slowly, when we explored that, her primary source of stress was that she could not read. Once she was doing an undergraduate, and when she was doing her PG preparation, she was a very studious girl. But now she could not read because she could not have a proper time. Also, she felt that she had made a wrong decision in selecting the stream. When she was preparing for her PG, she felt that this stream might be in a easier manner, and they can manage the time. But when they come into that field, they find that it is very tough. So that again puts a lot of pressure on her. So similarly, there are long working hours, and the people with poor time management skills, they tend to have again stress, and PGs are expected to make a lot of presentations. So they have those who have poor self-esteem, who have fear of crowds, and they have face a lot of stress in this regard. Also, PGs are expected to work as teams. So when they are unable to handle the teamwork, again there is a problem with stress. Also, there is an uncertainty about the job opportunities with the decreasing demands for the jobs, with job availability. So there is again an increased stress for that. And then there are regulatory demands. We are asked to fill up frequent assignments, e-portfolios, dissertation, exams, vivos, and all these have project or work deadlines. So filling up these takes a huge chunk of time from their education. So that again, if they feel that there is a poor understanding for this regulatory demand, and they feel that they are wasting unnecessary time, and that leads to stress and burnout. This was one of the recent most person who came and met me, who had a very severe stress because of his timeline about dissertation, and he had a few lagging months of e-portfolio preparation, and he felt that he's doing an unnecessary job in all this. He's wasting time in these works. So he was feeling that why I should follow I have made a mistake in selecting this course. I should have selected some other course. So there are a lot of regulatory pressure which causes stress and burnout. And then financial causes might be a high cost fees, student loans. So this fees should be covered by, most often the fees is covered by the postgraduate from their own pocket or from a student loan. So when it is covered from a student loan, again most of their stipend goes to covering the EMIs for the student loans. So again that puts a lot of pressure in their the financial aspect, as well as I told earlier, family expects them to cover for some of the finances. That again puts a lot of pressure for the postgraduates. And personal stress, expectations, parental expectation to get married, to go to a job, and relationship goals. That is again a major source of stress for a postgraduate. I have completed undergraduate. I am still yet to enter into a relationship with a girl or a boy. That is another thing, and it's a source of personal feeling of personal failure. So again, health issues like psychological or physical health issues of self or family. When the parents have some chronic illness, they have to take care of the parents, and when they have chronic illness, so all this contributes to stress, as well as social relationship deficit. This was one of my patients who was actually she was an service PG. She had entered the college as a service PG. So she had completed her PG, undergraduate some 6-7 years ago. So when she entered for post graduation, most of the PGs there are younger than her. So she could not get well with them. I mean, interact well with them. So what happened was this age difference between them that created a lot of rift. She felt that they are disrespecting her. They are making her do unnecessary work, and all that led to a psychological breakdown, which brought her to me. Similarly, I can recount another story of a neurosurgeon who joined the course at around the age of 47 years. And almost as a service PG he entered. He was a very good surgeon, and he joined the course at the age of 47 years. And but that one particular college, which I don't want to mention the name, the college authorities, I mean the department and the PGs, they never made any exemption for his age, and they asked him to do all the work as of that of other postgraduate, which put a lot of stress on him. Since he was a very good surgeon and who had a fair amount of practice, he expected that they will be treating him differently. But this stress of doing this like an even a simple job of OT booking and carrying blood, all those things made him have so much stress. Finally, it ended up in having a stroke. That he had a malignant hypertension, he ended up having stroke. So this social relationship deficit is one of the major source of stress in postgraduates. Also, there are poor lifestyle choices. Like most often they don't have a proper working exercise program. They don't often have a proper relaxing routine. So all that leads to source of leads to stress in this time. So symptoms of stress, mostly madam have covered. Most common symptom which we find in day-to-day practice is migraine or headache. Personally, I feel most of the migraine reported by the student, we mostly ended up having being a tension type headache. And the next thing which we find very commonly is the tearfulness. We say something, immediately the tears start to well up and they start to cry and they start to break down. So these are the very first signs that something is wrong. And there are other signs like anger, feeling numb or empty, and inability to sleep. All these are the signs, but I would say these two are very important danger signs. If we find something like that in any PG, immediately sit with them and talk, because those are the major signs we face in the practice. So how they cope? They have two different styles of coping mechanism. One is an approach style of coping mechanism, where they discuss, share with their friends and colleagues, or they seek the counseling help of the healthcare professional, or they take a break or vacation trips, or they participate in extracurricular activities, university clubs and societies. Or there may be an avoidance style of coping, which is very common. Alcohol, increase in the substance of abuse, alcohol, smoking, and other substance of abuse. And the most important thing is emotional eating. If we find that the restaurant opposite, we go to the restaurant opposite to us, he's thriving, he has a very thriving business because of the stress we have in our own. So this emotional eating is very common among all the like anywhere in any ages, this increased carbohydrate consumption. And this is now considered as a pandemic which needs to be addressed. And again, one other thing is avoiding or delaying the work till the last possible moment. That's an again, they will not, like if we have a deadline for submission, then till the last moment, they will avoid to do that. Finally, increased internet or mobile use, though this might be difficult to ascertain, but we find that most often they go into this monotonous, repetitive activities. They do it again and again, primarily to cope with the stress they feel. And so what else to do for they can do is how else to manage the stress. These are the ways they cope, but how else to manage? The very first thing is time management. That is one of the most important problems we repeatedly find among PGs. Though they are well intended, they don't know how to manage their time. They have so many tasks at hand and they don't prioritize the task, and they can tend to end up with last minute hurries and last minute deadlines. And another thing is that planning ahead. That planning ahead is very much difficult in with the postgraduates. Most often they don't plan ahead. Like if they are into a dissertation or a project, they don't have a proper roadmap or when to start the data collection, when to do another. So most often when the regulatory pressures which they feel is because of the poor planning skills. And then we need to have a proper emotional control. So this is a most important reason why there has a lot of interpersonal conflicts among the workplaces. And also we need to establish a good support network. This support network may be friends or family, or it may be online, offline, but we need to have a good support network which can be relied upon whenever the time of stress increases. And we need to have a good work-life balance, and we need to improve their lifestyle choices. So what can we do as a faculty? What can we do? The very first thing is early identification, and we need to have a sincere one-to-one interaction for all the PGs who have been identified early, because this is a very important aspect. Most often with this early interaction itself, mostly they come out with their problems, and once they come out with their problems, we need to find a way to resolve the problem, and that might require an early referral for counseling or pharmacological management. And sometimes it might require that regulatory pressures may need eased up as much as possible. And another thing is mentoring, as ma'am told about mentoring of the students, even in the postgraduate level, is very, very important thing to do. So with this, I end my brief presentation. Any questions, kindly ask.
Thank you for the presentation, sir. Now we will be open for the discussion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for the presentation. So now we'll have a discussions. Your queries can be posted in the chat box. So before that, we'll go with the case Vignet, which we shared earlier. So people can start discuss about the open about the case Vignet. So this is what we shared in the morning. Dr. X, he's a 24-year first year postgraduate student, had joined the course 8 months earlier. He is from a middle socioeconomic status, a second generation graduate who had performed fairly well in his undergraduate days. After joining the course in the initial 2 months, he had displayed good work ethics and was fairly regular to work. He had performed average in the academic demands during this period. After 2 months, he started to take frequent permissions, citing migraine headache. He was late to work and was not complying with the demands his supervisors placed on him. Consequently, he was frequently reprimanded, but still there was no change. He was frequently irritable with his co-pages and was often found to be tearful. Once or twice, he had lamented to the co-pages that he had made a mistake choosing this PG course. He was thus referred for assessment. During assessment, he highlighted the following issues. His parents are asking him to get married at once, but he is not willing. He has a student loan of 20 lakhs, EMI for which he is taking a lot of out of stipend. He feels that he cannot interact with his co-PGs freely as most of them are self-centered and competitive. He feels that he is the worst performer of the batch as he cannot answer the questions during rounds regularly. He has hobby of writing, which he cannot engage anymore as he is burdened by his work. He cannot imagine doing this work lifelong. When he joined the course, he had different expectations. So, but the course is boring with much focus on work completion, logbook completion, and assignments. So he wants to change the course but cannot. So please analyze and discuss this situation. So you give your opinion regarding this his status. And we also have one more case Vignet, so which will be posted in the WhatsApp group. So which was supposed to be an assignment for the participants. We can have a 2 minutes, like so the participants can post in the chat box. So any queries apart from the case Vignet also can be shared here.
Before some things comes in the chat box, let me ask. I think Dr. Surana, are you there?
Hello, yes, sir, I'm there.
Yeah, nice to see you and your presentation. It's an open question to both Sunaina as well as Dr. Vadappan. One by one, you can interact. Like, as you know, like whether it's an adult or it's a young person, the stress, the factors are almost similar. And similarly, normally, as you know, whenever we have gone through these presentations and all these things, the coping mechanisms and all these things are almost similar. How do you choose the approach to a person? Whether is it based on the age or is it based on the, for example, let us consider UG and PG. Yes, there is academic stress for both the UGs and the PGs. So whether the approach is same or different approach you adopt for the UG as well as the PGs. Dr. Sunaina, can you
Yes, sir.
highlight on that one? Then I can come to Dr. Avadappan.
Yes, sir. I think approach, sir, would be customized and will be very individual as to, you know, what are the individual or what are the needs of that particular individual. Of course, when we're talking about UG and PG, the academic demands may vary, but that individual perceives his external environment and what he understands as the source of stress, and how, you know, and his psychological makeup as to how he perceives situations, that would largely determine my approach, if I could respond to that. But since they are both coming in the same, almost in the same developmental age or the same developmental period, I don't think there will be very vast differences in our approach to how we deal with the case or how we go about.
Dr. Rao. I do concur with Sunaina ma'am, sir. Actually, basically, as I said, stress is an individualized phenomena. Approach to any issue would be an individual, will have an individual flavor. So the thing is here, the one thing what we have to see is, as I told, the stress is about the perspective. So why this, how this perspective can be changed? So the one thing which we have an advantage in postgraduates is their emotional maturity. So sometimes if they have very good emotional maturity, they are able to look into the problems in different way and they are able to sort it out. So that is the very fine difference between undergraduates and postgraduates. Otherwise, most often the approach remains the same. Sir. That's not much difference.
Just to continue with that one, given the same scenario and based on your practical or the experience in handling this type of cases, which you feel easier, whether it's a you undergraduate student or it's a postgraduate student? Avadeppan can start, then Sunaina can.
Given this, I would say all are equally difficult, but somewhat postgraduates are easier to handle in my regard, because undergraduates have got a very, they're in an emotional period upheaval. So they had usually we find a bit difficult to handle their issues when the coping and to develop a good coping mechanisms. But that again, we cannot generalize here, sir. Mostly it is depending on the individual. But usually the postgraduates have a bit the advantage in this regard, a small bit of advantage in this regard. Ma'am Sunaina ma'am, yes.
So once again, I would say that again, very individual, not anything. It would depend largely on the individual that I'm working with. What kind of coping mechanisms individual has, what kind of, what are the strengths that the individual has, all those things would, psychological strengths, all those things would be very important in deciding what kind of an outcome there would be. Irrespective of whether they're in UG or PG, it is more about the personality makeup and the psychological makeup of the individual. Sometimes we have, found that a PG can be very emotionally unstable, whereas sometimes we can find that an UG is very receptive. Sometimes we can find that the UG is, is not cooperating that much. So we cannot pin down and say it is more like the individual. But since they are basically in the, like I said, in the same developmental period of life or the same phase of life, across those years, like we are saying 18 to 24 or within 18 to 29, it is within that period of life. I don't think there would be very distinctive approaches separately, but it will be more tuned to their individual, how they are looking at the stressful event, what kind of responses they are generating, what kind of resources they already have in store. And of course, how much successful we are in building an alliance with the individual. And there a certain level of compliance which they show on their part, with the in the change process, their commitment and involvement and compliance.
Thank you. And sometimes, as you know, we get caught between the conflicting opinion about the child between the parents, right? So sometimes we have seen, suppose the child feels stressed. One parent says that, okay, let him experience this stress so that he'll become a good person, or that he'll learn more about the life. And whereas other person says, no, let us take home and take a break and all these things. So we are caught in between as an administrator. What will be your advice to address this situation?
Sir, can I respond?
Please go
to
ahead,
that?
ma'am.
Yeah. Sir, in my experience, like when I was in Mahatma Gandhi and, and even later now in my practice, yes, that is one approach that you are mentioning. So the first hurdle that at least I, as a professional, have faced is the students being open to mental health services, the students over the years, I have seen actually a change in pattern while I was at Mahatma Gandhi. Initially, most of the referrals that I would get were from the dean's office and or some faculty member. Gradually over the years, what I noticed was it would be one or two friends of that student who would be accompanying them to the department. And later on, there were direct self-referrals where the students would directly come and approach us. So far as parents are concerned, sir, in a lot of these cases, what we experienced was that parents have a lot of times can have a very high level of stigma against, coming ahead or, letting people know that their ward is undergoing stress or any health issues, not wanting to, divulge about it. So both these responses could be, could be a result of that particular factor, like what you say, that I'll just take them away, I'll take them away home and then everything will be fine. So it could be some kind of an approach where, they try to, deny the problem or, not do anything about it, avoid it. The other is, they might be feeling very, embarrassed to come and be present or attend a session or have to divulge information about family. And so I think somewhere, in both these stances that you mentioned, sir, could have a lot to do with how parents look at it. And that, I think, has been the biggest hurdle, that we have faced when it comes to students, to make parents. So I feel that, it would be very important, imperative, I guess, in any university to, if they can mobilize, resources to have continued mental health awareness and programs targeting just parents. And if there can be a liaison, a regular, very structured, systematic liaisoning with the parents of students, there could be sessions and something, so that we can keep their parents in the loop. And because there can be a lot of obstacle and hurdle that one faces. Of course, certain parents, a lot of parents, once they come down, once they have a session and they discuss the issues, after that, I have seen several of them being more open and receptive, and they would text me or, keep us informed. They would come down maybe once in a month or once in 3 months to, give a report as to, or ask us as to how their child is doing. So those attitudes also, can change, or we can break that stigma also. But we need to have some kind of dialogue with them to begin with. Without that, it's not going to happen, sir.
I concur with what ma'am is saying, that as an I agree that as an administrator, it's a very vexing problem to solve, because we need to look into the requirements, leave regular rules and other things. But taking leave, we can view it as an coping mechanism. Or my first question is, what is the purpose of this leave? It is just a purpose to get away from this place and to go somewhere else and be there and then come back to work, then nothing is going to be accomplished. Because as I said, stress is again, it's primarily due to how we perceive the problem rather than being in the center of the problem. So wherever you go away, unless until you change the approach, that problem is not going to get solved. So just taking a leave and moving away will not solve the problem, but rather taking a leave and going to some place where they might have a confidential consultation, where they might have an further improvement and further measures to improve their mental health, then that leave is warranted. Then they can go ahead and do that. But otherwise, just moving away from the issue is it's again another way of avoidance, which I think we cannot promote much. So I would most often I find that just let him come to the home. He'll be all right when he comes back. Doesn't work, sir. That is the obvious thing. We need, when he goes home, he needs to do something to improve the mental health, so that when he comes back, he'll be okay to do that. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think I got the point. I think what is more required here is the counseling of the parents before taking any decision. That plays a sometimes what you can say, you allow them to what Dr. Avadipan told, like by taking leave, what they are going to do, in which way that will help. Because anyway, after sometimes again he has to come back to this particular situation and to improve the complete the course, right? So that is what is important. And at the same time, as you know, like many times, as you know, parents, suppose they are the single child, stay, and they also feel that, okay, if they can keep for some more time, that can be done. So that is what is important. Parental, not only the counseling of the students, at the same time, parental counseling is also required.
Yeah, it could be an avoidance coping that the parents are using actually to deal with the situation. And sir, it can be also maybe some provisions where this is just a suggestion, sir, that mandatorily they meet some person from the student welfare committee before they take their away. That is fine. They can decide whether they want to get them treated or want to seek professional help, or where they want to seek it. That is completely up to the parents. But before they leave, if they can at least connect with any one of the healthcare team or the welfare committee, so that certain issues can be addressed, and maybe they might change their mind, or it can be it can impact the way they look at the issue or the problem after that.
Yeah, correct. Bimal, any questions?
We got two responses from the audience, like about the case vignette. So based on personality, like we can plan stress management for that particular student. And Dr. Lena has responded like one-to-one interaction with the PG. So identify the source of stress, as it here looks like the student has academic issues, financial issues, relationship deficits. So we can help him plan accordingly. Sir, about the case vignette, like about your experience on this case, Dr. Avadipan, sir.
You mean this the 24-year-old first year postgraduate student, right? That case.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
the case.
So 2 people have responded.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I start
Yes,
responding?
yes, sir,
Yes,
you
sir.
can.
Yes, sure.
Okay. See, in this particular case, we have following issues. He has listed out 6 issues. The first issue is parents are asking him to get married at once, but he is not willing. And that is the parental pressure he is facing on. So this can be managed by the counselor when the counselor meets the parents, and they can be highlighted about the toll that is their demands are taking in their ward, and they can be asked to ease up the pressure. That is one way of but that should be done only with the consent from the postgraduate, and if they are willing to bring the parents, and then we can able to do that. And then he has a student loan of 20 lakhs for which his EMI is taking a lot out of stipend. This is again something which counselor cannot do anything, because this is this is a situation which we have entered in. But which we can reorient him in this situation by saying that see, this EMI which is paid out during this period will help him ease the financial pressure when he goes to work. So most of his student loan would have been covered in this 3-year period when he does the post graduation, rather than when the period when he goes to work and when he has a difficulty in getting work, or those periods. So that is another thing which we can highlight. And he feels that he cannot interact with co-PGs as most of them are self-centered and competitive. This requires a lot of challenging, and how he came to that conclusion, and lot of cognitive work. And how does he arrive at that conclusion? And he feels that he is the worst performer of the batch, and as he cannot answer the question during the rounds regularly. And this again requires a lot of cognitive approach. The individual, we need to highlight them. The most important word here is the worst. He is the worst. So that we need to highlight, that we need to bring out. And this is called catastrophizing. Whether this is he really that worst, or is he so is that level, is he making a poor judgment about it? That we have to bring up. And he cannot write, and he's burdened by the work. That is another thing. Most often the approach which I adapt is so this was especially true in a case of undergraduate who came to counseling for me. She was a very good poet. So I asked her to bring me some of her poems, and when she brought that, then I sat and went through that, and I congratulated her on her reports, and then I asked her to see whether there are some competitions are available, and whether she can look into that competition, where we can try to do that. So initially she was very hesitant, but finally she agreed. And when she started to work in that regard, her interest in the studies also improved, and the stress started to come down. And he cannot imagine doing this lifelong. When he joined the course, he had a different expectation. There again, we need to clarify what was the expectation he had, and how this is different from what he was thinking. So, and then now midstream, he can mostly they won't let the change a topic subject. So how to make best of the situation, and how to make him come out of this opinion or idea. That is, and again, this is a very, very tricky situation, because if we take into this is a very common situation in the foreign graduates. I mean, for the people who study, if we have interacted with them in foreign university, there is an option of passing their course, and then getting on a huge sabbatical, and then coming back and resuming the course in a later period. But which is not so much true in our situations. So this is something different in our situation. But when we talk about individual autonomy and the individual choice, if a person feels he is not able to make up the choice, I mean, he is not able to cope up, and if he feels that he wants to move away from the course, then again, he has every right to do so. So we cannot refuse him that. We cannot again act as a parent and push him into the course. But we should make sure that he is not making the decision with in a wrong state of mind, or when he is pressured, or when he is stressful. So the first thing when he says this would be that I would ask him to buy some time. I will ask him, okay, we will go through the issues which you have told, and finally after this we will make a pact. We will come after so many sessions, we will once again come to this question, and if you still have that idea, then we will discuss that with your parents, and then we will come to a conclusion. Most often when the stress goes off, they find a way to cope with the curricular demands, and they come up with a different idea. They want to continue the course. So these are some of the approaches I would adapt. Ma'am, to you, ma'am.
Yes, I agree with most of the things Sir has Dr. Auripan has mentioned. It could the lot of things that the individual is experiencing. He has listed out a whole lot of stressors, yes, but the experience that he's having, like he's not wanting to be in the course, or he's the worst performer in the course. Some of these notions that he's having could be very much due to the kind of frame of mind he is in, or the kind of mood state that he is in currently. So it could be transient also. And so once this lifts, he could if he could reassess and reorient and look at it in reappraise the situation. Certain things, we have to decide, what are the things we want to work on. There are certain things we cannot really touch. For example, when it comes to monetary issues, there is something there we would not be as service providers, we wouldn't be able to do much about that. Even for, with parents, how much of an access we can have to parents if that is they choose to cooperate with us, and whether we are going to be able to change the parents' notion about the marrying of the student and things like that is also needs to be seen. But yes, it will be a good idea to call in the parents and have a conversation with them and try to make them understand what kind of a state of mind that their son or daughter is in, and their demands or expectations, how it is impacting this person further. That is one. Yes, that can be done. Two other things is, one is what Dr. Audiyappan said, that if we can help him with a time schedule or time management, where the individual is able to take out some time to engage in activities which are stress busters for him. This individual, the kind of interests he has or the talents he has, if he can execute them more often, use more of those, so that he can be helped there. The other thing that we can look into is, he probably is not socializing very well. There could be certain social, social skill deficits, like we say, or, communication or social skills issues that the individual could be having. And as a result of which he may not be able to, build friendships, or at least be in some meaningful relationships, because at this point of time in life, it is very important. The peer group, friendships, peer relationships are extremely important, and how the individual is viewed by the peers, whether he is accepted or approved by the peers or not, plays a very important role. So maybe I would like to focus on improving his or her social skills, and helping him or her to make more friends and have a support network within the department itself, which will be very handy for him. So that is one, the other area. So I think these are two areas. And then we definitely, like Dr. Audiyappan said, I would like to give him more time, that maybe, okay, you take 6 months time, and let us review the situation after 6 months and see how you feel about it. And within that time, most likely, with intervention, he would start feeling better. And then, his whole idea about the course might change. Also, I would like to rule out depression, whether how severe is this? I mean, whether it is the problems are at the stress level only, or whether it has emanated to a more severe condition like depression, where if so, then certain other kinds of interventions might be useful. And yes, cognitive strategies would be definitely helpful to deal with the negative thoughts and expectations that he is having. So yes, that's how I think we can go about this case.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. Thank you, sir. So due to time constraint, we have one more question. Like Mr. Dr. Saravanan has said, we all know that during PG they face a lot of stress. Hence, institute should have some prevention steps to handle. Is there any standard treatment protocol? So we already discussed in the previous presentations also. Like we have a student shelters. Like every institution should have a committee, and then we are also following the protocol here. Like it will be applicable not only for the UG students, also applicable for the PG students. So the further discussions we can have in the WhatsApp group. So thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, participants, for joining the sessions. So we'll be sharing the case vignette today or by tomorrow. So we are requesting the participants to share through the Google Forms about the case vignette. So thank you, sir. We'll be sharing the feedback form also. So requesting every participants to fill the feedback form also. So thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. We are closing the session.
Thank you all. Thank you all. It
Thank
was
you, ma'am.
wonderful to be part of Mahatma Gandhi MGMCRI program, and thank you. Thank you
Thank you,
for
ma'am.
having me. Yes. Thank you, sir.